Welcome everyone to a new episode of Off the Block 21 Chairs in-house podcast, where my research colleague Max Mikkelsen and myself have some of the most interesting guests in the crypto space on. Today I'm very excited to have Weekee, one of the founders of Virtuals Protocol, on the podcast. Virtuals is one of the largest AI agent crypto projects out there. And with this, thanks Weekee for taking the time. I'm very excited to have you here.
Thanks, Darius. Thanks, Max. Yeah, happy to be here.
And I think we immediately kickstart with our rapid fire questions, where Max going to take the lead for the initial ones.
Yeah, Weekee, we like to play a little bit of good cop, bad cop. So don't worry, questions are easy, especially for someone that's already been in crypto, such as yourself. So first things first, how did you get into crypto for the very first time?
Yeah, so I got into crypto in 2016 in uni days, basically. Bought some Bitcoin, some Ethereum. Put my Ethereum in Bitfinex, and I think Bitfinex got hacked. I think they took away 30% of my ETH, but it was not too bad. Since then, I actually wasn't really active in crypto until 2021. Basically, I just like a diamond hand hodl mindset. So from 2016 to 2021, like I just bought and I didn't do any trading. I missed the entire DeFi summer, but yeah.
Sounds like not too dissimilar from myself. I also got into crypto during university to help fund a couple weekends here and there if things were going well. So you mentioned you first invested it in Bitcoin and Ethereum, but what was the first blockchain that you actually used?
Yeah, apart from the purchase and like put it in my cold wallet in 2016, it will have to be Ethereum. So the reason we got back active was because of Axie Infinity. So I think it was May 2021, right before AXS really took off. Like basically I was like hiring some Malaysians to basically farm SLP tokens. Those were the days.
Cool. And I guess that ties into, Virtual's initial background of being, more of a metaverse gaming protocol before you guys pivoted into AI, which brings me to my next question. What was the first moment that you realized AI and crypto was inevitable?
Yeah, I wouldn't say like we knew that AI and crypto were like a perfect couple, but it was I think November 2023 when like ChatGPT came out, and we kind of no, actually no, it's more like we knew for a fact that ChatGPT would be big, but we had as a degen ourselves, like there's no really good AI assets out there that we want to buy. And at the same time, like at the time, like GameFi was pretty dead. It was like, instead of just like investing in AI tokens, like why don't we just like pivot the entire company to AI? And obviously since then we're trying to think about like where crypto and AI would make sense together as a couple. There's not really like a lot of thinking, so to speak, to be honest. Yeah.
Makes sense. I think it was maybe an era where you saw the potential of AI and crypto together.
Yeah.
So brings me to my next question as well. Do you think crypto needs AI or AI needs crypto, or you think it's a perfect marriage between both?
Yeah, I think so. The way I see it is that AI agents don't really need crypto, but like human needs crypto in the era of AI dominance. Because to be honest, like if you don't really care about sovereignty and like your own privacy and like the whole George Orwell thinking of like Big Brother watching, like to be honest, you don't really need crypto. Like your life would be 100x more convenient just by giving your credit card to an AI agent owned by Sam Altman and they just do everything for you, right? But I do think that from a cypherpunk point of view, it's kind of important for humanity to think about a parallel system where you still use AI agents, but you use it in a more sovereign and like a more contained way and on the infrastructure that's not controlled by the big corporates, right? And that's how we've been thinking about the design principles of virtuals. Although we are more famous for our launchpad, but like actually we spend most of our time thinking about that infrastructure. Yeah.
Makes sense. I think with many innovations in the space, it's something that's exciting, something that brings people's attention, like the Launchpad, that, gets traction online. But of course, the infrastructure that you guys are building out behind the scenes is equally, if not more important than what the public catches their eye on. Nevertheless, my last question for you is, what's one misconception about AI agents that still annoys you?
The one thing that annoys me the most is that it's actually more of an illusion, which is AI agents are already super advanced in the enterprise level. So, for example, like Facebook marketing is an agent itself because it could optimize like your spend to acquire a customer at the cost of $10, for example. But that's on the enterprise level. But in the individual hands, like your hand and my hand, our agents are very shit, like very bad. And like in fact, for the past 2 to 3 years, like your life really improved because of like AI agents? The answer is no. Apart from like ChatGPT, answering questions, right? So despite all the hype that's like everyone talking about OpenClaw and everything, there's still a little bit of gap that actually impact our personal life. Obviously, that will change very soon, but we've been saying that this very soon for quite a few years.
And actually, this brings me already to my question, and I'm gonna skip one, which is basically, what is the biggest bottleneck for agents today? Because you just talked about this. Would you say this is the biggest bottleneck, or is there something else?
Yeah, so like I said, like I think you need a lot of resources today to build a really useful agent because you need a proper workflow, proprietary data experience to build like a marketing agent that can deliver you a customer at a cost of $10 through Facebook ads, right? That's the most efficient agents that you can think of in the world. But for you and me, it's like, what do you use the agent for? Like, do you really need an agent to book an Uber for you? Like, and that's probably the reality, right? No matter how quickly the tech evolve, as a human being, like a normal human being, your agents wouldn't be super powerful to a certain extent because, like, what makes you so special from like Darius agents versus Max's agents? It's the same because we're using the same infrastructure, right? Yeah.
I think there's also the thing in crypto trading, because a lot of people say when everybody uses the same agents, you won't have an edge, no?
Yeah, I do think the edge comes from obviously like, your alpha chats, insider information trading, whatever, like your on-chain,
Compliance, please don't listen in.
Yeah, and or like smart money tracking that you've been tracking and like whatever. Like these are like proprietary information, right? Like that you could automate using an agent, but like you still need to have the input in the first place. Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
Even if you have the same infrastructure, that doesn't necessarily mean you get the same results, right? You have still a degree of human intervention. And that's where you can generate alpha
Yeah.
or decisions differently than someone else using the same agent.
Yeah. It actually amplified the gap, which is now as the top 1% trader, because I have all these tools, like I don't have to hire interns anymore and I can just like scale my thinking. And so the performance gap will be way bigger between the top and the bottom tier. Yeah.
Next question I have for you in the rapid fire section, and obviously we as researchers, we always look at different metrics. What is one metric that you really watch, let's say in the context of AI agents, that you really keep track on?
So from our perspective, it's very simple, which is like, do you pay for an agent? Like you could subscribe to a service to use an agent, but like, will you pay another agent to fulfill your own needs? It's actually the one thing that we look at the most, because until then, basically means that nothing in the world today is worth paying for, which means no one is generating anything of value to you apart from your subscription to ChatGPT. That's how we think about it. And until today, to be honest, it's not really there yet.
What would you say is more dangerous, dumb agents or opaque infrastructure?
Dumb agents or hack infrastructure. Yeah, dumb agents are not.
I mean, they can spend all your money and send it.
Right.
We just had the case.
Right. Yeah, I saw. I think infrastructure is definitely more dangerous in terms of the scale, because people tend to trust infrastructure more than like agents these days. You won't give a lot of money to your agents for now. Yeah.
What would you say is one underappreciated trend in AI agents? Because there's so much buzz, but is there maybe an area within AI agents that you feel like people are not really paying attention to right now, and they should?
Yeah, I think the underappreciated fact, it's more like my personal observation, which is a lot of jobs will be gone, specifically the analytics jobs like SQL and the jobs that are like junior engineer jobs will totally be gone. Just totally be gone. And I'm just worried for them. I just don't know what they're gonna do. I mean, I have a lot of colleagues like that, but yeah.
I always think that, but then I wonder, like, if you're a business that still needs manpower, maybe not at the junior level, but you need people at senior or mid-senior or, executive levels, but you don't have those junior engineers in your stack anymore.
Yeah.
How do you continue to scale your business without those juniors
You don't.
in
You
the scenario that they don't exist anymore?
right. You mean like in the event that the senior engineers retire and then there's no
Yeah.
one left, right? I haven't thought about it yet, but I'll give you a case in point. My senior engineers refuse to talk to my junior engineer now because he would rather just get his AI to do it. Like he refused. Like there's an engineer, like junior engineer there's like there. It's waste of my time. It's more efficient for me to just get my
To get
But
the
I think
agent to
the
do it.
problem then is that then nobody want to become an engineer in the first place, and then you have like this gap, because like the seniors at some point gonna retire, and either's gonna be like only AI, but then we don't have any humans anymore, like starting this career because you need juniors to become senior.
Sure. I actually think it's less. I'm not worried about that. Like the way I see it is that the world will be basically split into two: people who are just have high agency, and people who are just like do it because my boss asked me to do things. And those guys will just totally be useless. If you have high agency, even if you don't know anything about coding, you will learn, and like the tools will just get better, and then you will be able to produce something.
Maybe coming to the last question of the rapid fire section, which is always very similar. Weekee, one word to describe the state of AI agents right now.
Trick one. It's a difficult one.
That's why he calls me the backup, I guess.
Yeah. The one word would be is personal, maybe. I think the word is personal. And the reason I say this is because I think OpenClaw shows that it's a very good personal agent as an assistant, but it also shows the limitations such that you wouldn't put your OpenClaw out there and interact with the world because it's not safe. For example, you get prompt injected, you will lose your credit card information and a lot of things. I do think the next leap would be then you have a personal agent that knows everything about you, which is very private, but you need a lot more than that.
I do understand that because even when I'm using just, let's say, general chatbot, AI chatbots, whether it's GPT, whether it's Gemini or Grok, they start to know me. They start to know how I like my outputs. And that's something that I think is undervalued. The switching cost between one agent to another agent becomes higher and higher the more they get to know you. It's like having a friend, a useful one.
You will be very scared if I get to talk to your Gemini or ChatGPT now, because I'll be able to ask, like, man, what's Max's, what did he do yesterday? Which is like, do you really want me to talk to? Like, but the thing is like, but you need your agent eventually to interact with the external world to add more value to you. So it's that,
it's double-edged. Like it's good and bad. It's a bit of that. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, that wraps up the rapid fire. And now I think we're going to take a step back and just talk a little bit at a high level about what Virtuals is. So it's an AI agent launchpad, as you mentioned, and that's what you guys got a lot of attention for, especially at the start of 2025.
Yeah.
And essentially, you guys allow the creation, the deployment of these agents, and also allow other people to own them, to invest into them, and that way you try to align the incentives and of the agent to the user. In your words, what is Virtuals?
Yeah, we call it AI agent society. I mean, the way we imagine, like not now, but like the future is that you have human, you have agents, and then all of us just co-live in a world. And honestly, it could be a virtual world and like could be a physical world, which is why we venture into robotics, because robots are basically AI agents with a body. And then we see that as an inevitability where it will just be like that, right? Now, given that is the world, how would things play out, right? Like, I think in terms of crypto, then there are two parts, right? One is that you need to do transactions between each other, just like any in a society. And so then we build an agent native commerce protocol or a payment protocol. But the second thing where crypto comes in is that it's a Wall Street, right? Obviously, businesses make money and you want to invest in them in equity and whatever. So, yeah.
Makes sense. I mean, I want to touch a little bit on what you just said about agents kind of needing crypto, or why crypto comes here in the first place, because we may have some viewers who are a little bit new to crypto, and especially this is quite, let's say, edge topic. AI and crypto can be quite technical. And why do agents need blockchain rails? Is it so that they're permissionless, so that they can open their own wallets without KYC, and it essentially allows for that innovation loop to be a lot quicker? Or what's your take on that?
Yeah. I would split it into two parts, right? So there's the blockchain rail and the crypto part. The way I see blockchain is more like the core aspect of blockchain is the decentralization nature, right? Which means it's censorship resistant and it's permissionless, right? So you, in a world of like infinite content and infinite generation of output, you want to have source of truth that is censorship resistant. And so in that context, in the society where humans and agents live together, and suppose the agents are smarter than you want to always refer to a ledger that is like censorship resistant, right? That stores the most important truth, so to speak. That's how I think about from a human point of view. From an agent point of view, there are two parts, right? Obviously, one is just from a payment part. The current world of like sort of KYC and everything is just a lot of friction for agents to conduct payment. It's not saying it's impossible, but like it's a lot of friction. And so obviously from like a thermodynamics point of view, like they will just go to crypto, right? And the second part is obviously tokenization, right? I do think that the people have come to notice that the core PMF of crypto is basically just tokenization and payment. And turns out these are the best tools for AI agents as well.
But maybe adding up on this, Weekee, I'm wondering, a lot of people argue that blockchain rails are like the best rails for AI agents to transact. Do you think this is really the truth, or is it just what we in blockchain hope it is the case to give us more like, let's say, a credibility or a reason to be on chain?
I actually think blockchain is the most efficient infrastructure, even for human to do transactions. The problem is that there's a lot of switching costs today that you have already done, like a Visa and like all those credit cards and everything. And it's much harder to switch, right? The beauty about AI agents then is that you don't have the switching costs because you are literally just greenfield. And so then you can just do it straight. And the reason why I say that it's most efficient even for humans is very simple, right? It's actually not about the cost per transaction. Like, I mean, Visa server is probably cheaper to host than like paying Ethereum stakers the emission to validate. It's actually cheaper because when you have a transparent ledger, you do not need, your cost of risk comes down, right? So in the event of fraud or like when I transfer money from Malaysia to Switzerland, like there's so much friction because they need to check that I have the money, you have the money, like it's going to take like 3 days. And the amount of human required to do the validation versus having a single ledger that just like validate everything, right? So it's actually more cost efficient, but it's more of a stablecoin thesis than the AI agent crypto thesis. It's actually more of a stablecoin thesis that applies to the human and agents, right? But yeah.
Those are the growth in that segment would also benefit AI agents too, as you mentioned. Cool. So this may be a little bit of a rogue kind of question, but, back in 2025, I saw, and I interacted myself also with the Virtuals protocol, also funding a couple of these agents. XBT, I think it's the largest in terms of market cap, i.e. it's got the most funding for the agent itself. But what is your favorite agent that is on Virtuals, or what kind of tasks do you think are the most interesting that AI agents can solve?
Actually, Max, first time I met Weekee at Token in Dubai, asking the same question, what is his favorite agent? So I'm interested to see if the answer changed or not.
Yeah, like I don't have it yet. Is the truth.
Okay, it's the same answer. It's the same answer because back then you said
I don't have it yet because it's the same answer. Like I want the true AI agent that I want is actually the Facebook agent, for example. I want the TikTok agent, for example, that able to consistently like personalize content for you because it truly knows you and like it actually generates commercial value and it's actually truly smart. A lot of these agents today that, I mean, to be very intellectually honest, is that they are more of a tool rather than an agent. Because like they provide like a service, almost like a skill, but you wouldn't call it an agent, right? But we remain optimistic in the sense. It's been almost 2 years actually, by the way, 1.5 years. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, last year when I saw AIXBT and go quite crazy on Twitter and post a lot of research topics, Darius and myself, we work as part of the research team here at Share, so we were a little bit worried. We're like, they might come for us, come for our job. But as you said, I think at the moment these agents, as they're a little bit, holding your hand and helping you with tasks rather than outright replacing yourself.
And maybe also adding to this, Max, because I had a conversation with our heads of research here at 21 Shares. Obviously, we all use AI because it helps us like create content. But like nowadays, everybody can use an AI to say, write me a research report about Bitcoin. It's really about this analytical thinking, about giving your own edge, which differentiates then the content that we create versus like, let's say, other people who like fully rely on AI, which I think is great. So we're not like replaced yet, but maybe time gonna change it. I want to focus before we come to the very exciting topic of robotics, which I think is like one of those newer like segments, get back to maybe something that sounds a little bit boring, but I think it's very interesting, which are like standards. We have X402, we have now ERC 8004. Maybe Weekee, can you explain our audience what those two standards are about and why you maybe think they're also very relevant for all the topics that we just talked, payments, identity, AI agents interacting on chain?
Yeah. So the way we think about if you build from scratch what an AI agent need when they are trying to do a transaction with another agent, we think there are three parts that you need. You need a registry, you need a way to pay. So the registry is 8004 in this case. The way to pay is X402. But you also need a coordination layer, which is, it's like when you're trying to get a service, it's not just like, this is the money, this is the stuff, right? Like you have to back and forth. This is not good enough, blah, blah, negotiate the price. So there's also the coordination layer, right? So Virtuous Agent Commerce Protocol basically encapsulates end to end. And that's how we built from scratch, from first principles. Along the way, obviously, Ethereum came out with 8004. We're like, instead of us building our own registry, why don't we just work with them? And now, obviously, X402, and then which we are the largest facilitator on X402, by the way.
Maybe just for our audience, Vicky, who are not maybe familiar with X402. So it's a payment standard by, I believe, Coinbase, who created it. It's HTTP native, so it's internet native in simple terms, and it allows AI agents to pay any API with stable coins. So basically, like it's a standard that you can use not just on Ethereum but also Solana, so it's chain agnostic to enable payment. So it's similar like HTTP, which allows everybody, independent of which browser you use, to go on a website, or SMPT, which allows everybody, independent of which email account you use, to send emails from a Gmail to a Hotmail or whatever. So it's basically like the equivalent you have in crypto. Just as a small remark, because I think some in the audience, and we are very familiar with those terms, they might don't know what we're talking about.
True. Yeah, you are right. There is good point. Yeah, so I mean, obviously registry is like Google reviews, right? So which businesses have what reviews, what do they sell? And then X402, to your point, is a way to pay. But obviously things are limited because X402 as of today is more like you have to send me the money first and I will show you the article, for example. But in the real world, there are many ways to pay money. Monthly subscription, success-based, a percentage of the transactions rather than just like a one-off fixed payment, for example. And so on top of X402, we also provide different forms of payment mode. And then when we talk about coordination layer, there's also like, how do I make sure that the conversations between agent A and agent B is actually a private conversation? So that, like, how do you put it on the blockchain without being like public, right? And then all those things, right? So leveraging the blockchain, but while being practical at the same time.
I think that's something that, you mentioned before, agents, part of the benefit or part of the reason why they may choose blockchain rails is because they're able to access them permissionlessly. But if this is to scale to the level of large-scale institutions, you probably would need a certain level of, privacy or compliance to existing standards in the non-crypto world. So do you think these types of standards are what brings us closer to like institutional adoption of AI in crypto?
To be honest, all these are open source. So if at Insti they want to just fork it and then run their own validation, it is fully private, right? And that's how which is when we first started, we tried to like gatekeep and be closed source because we like, we spend so much time, we try to make money out of it. But we just realized that we just want people to use it. So
closed systems, it's harder to scale them in general. So part of your ethos in the crypto world may be to be more interoperable and to be more open source. Makes sense.
I wonder, since we're talking about standards, also like again, like I'm keeping actually the robotics topic for you, Max, so you can go into like I think like maybe the most exciting topic for me personally. But before we go into this, we talked about standards. Let's briefly talk about infrastructure. Weekee, do you think there's a preference, or do you guys have a preference when it comes, let's say, to Solana, Ethereum, or other L1s? Which one are like the best for AI agents, or where do you see like let's say the benefit and disadvantages of each of those big infrastructures?
I mean, but I'm biased because like our entire team doesn't know how to do Rust, and so like we are EVM maxis, and like we actually initially built on Ethereum, but because of the gas cost concern, then we chose our home base to be base chain, right? But like I said, because it's open source nature for Agent Commerce Protocol, like we do encourage all chains to just adopt it, and like we don't make any money out of it, right? Like in terms of like I'm a big fan of EVM, and I do think that the world will benefit a lot more if everyone just use EVM, because like it's just much easier for us. It's not like anyone's gonna make any money out of it. Like you use EVM, like Ethereum does not pump anyways. It's like, but it helps with it helps builders like us, because it's like I don't have to learn Rust. I don't have to learn like Aptos language and like Move language. And so, but I do think that I'm increasingly convinced that EVM is the dominant language moving forward, given both the Lindy effect and how people start to realize that.
Can you explain for our audience what the Lindy effect is?
Yeah, because like basically my devs is like, most of our devs are like blockchain, like since like 5-6 years ago. And obviously Solana wasn't even there back then. So like, you know, like, they're not going to learn, like they're reluctant to learn Rust, for example, right? And then the junior engineers that join will just like learn EVM from our senior engineers, and they only know EVM. And so, and that sort of cascade, and like as time goes by, EVM gets more valuable, is how I think about it.
So it's a bit of a network effect in a sense.
It's a bit of a net. It's correct. And so I'm an EVM maxi, and I do think that
you're making Darius quite happy by saying that.
I'm also you can say an EVM, let's say preferentialist. I wouldn't call myself a maxi anymore, but if I have to choose, it would be Ethereum. So it's very nice to have you on the podcast with the same opinion. Because we have also a lot of like Solana fans here in the team, and we always joke around.
It's not related to the token price, but like if I don't care about making money and I just want to buy a token to support a movement, like I would buy Ethereum, for example, just because of a lot of ideology, like philosophy thing. But we're down bad, so.
So since we're down bad, let's talk about, I think, the most exciting thing.
Robotics. Cool. You did mention earlier today that you don't yet see agents necessarily replacing humans. Part of that reason may be because they still live purely digitally. I know my boss won't actually replace me until maybe there's a physical version of me that could be a robot that's actually there because he likes in-person interactions. But all jokes aside, we are seeing a shift of AI agents moving into the physical world, right? So we're seeing increasing links to IoT, real-world services. And why does this matter? Like, what is actually the difference when these AI agents actually have physical forms, let's say? Does it allow them to do services they previously weren't able to? Or is it just about scaling them and helping them learn more about what happens in the real world?
Yeah, I think it's exactly the same story as AI, which is obviously machine learning has been around for like, I don't know how many years, and robots been around for like a lot of years, right? So, but what got people excited about ChatGPT is it almost that like it sort of passed the Turing test where people feel like this is actually like the guy that can do everything under the sun. And within the robotics world is the same. It's not about robotics, it's about humanoid, right? Which is that one humanoid can do everything under the sun, right? Rather than having like 10 different robots doing specialized tasks, which is happening for so many years. That's the excitement, but like the truth is we are not there yet. Like we are not even at the first version of ChatGPT yet. Like people, so the industry experts think that it's at least 3 to 5 years out. Get to the ChatGPT 3.0 moment, right? So that's
because you have a lot of these in, let's say, the non-crypto world. I've seen Neo, the home robot that does house tasks.
Those are scans.
That doesn't necessarily feel game-changing to me that you have someone at home doing, your chores for you. That's not really a game-changing kind of invention.
It's actually game-changing in my view.
Okay.
But like showcase in a demo video is a demo video.
Mhm.
And they ask you to like pre-buy right now and like you're gonna get it like 1 year later, which I highly doubt so, right? So I think those are dishonest marketing videos, in my opinion. Like the it's game changing because now you don't need, like, for example, in Switzerland, I suppose it's very expensive to hire a caretaker when you have kids. But imagine you have a human that you truly trust, and like just think
Yeah.
about how much unlock
Yeah.
in terms of
Yeah.
right.
You know, Weekee, it's funny. I used to live in San Francisco, and you have those Waymos, so those self-driving
Yeah.
cars. And I remember, like, first time it came, like, I ordered one. I was like, okay, I want to try it, but it's gonna be
Yeah.
shit, and it's kind of weird. You don't have a driver, okay.
Yeah.
And then the first ride was obviously very exciting.
Yeah.
Afterwards, I just took Waymos. I didn't even want to take Ubers because they would
Yeah.
drive way better. Like, even I was thinking my little sister sometimes feel like I'm comfortable being like with a man in like
Yeah.
late night in a car. It's way nicer because you don't have nobody. You can play your own music. It's like
Yeah.
you can just focus on yourself. And I feel
Yeah.
like we're gonna probably see like the same development like happening with like humanoids once they are like ready. Because initially I think a lot of people say like I don't want my child being like, let's say, taking care of a robot. But then over
Yeah.
time they say, okay, it's gonna be cheaper. Better the robot is like 24/7, like attentive versus a human who gets tired or takes a break or whatever, and that's going to be like with advantages. But on the other side, also we're going to replace again a whole new job category with robots. Where the question is like, do we also create like the equal amount of new jobs? We're not there yet, but we're moving to this.
Yeah, but it's a game changer, Max, in my opinion. It's
So ultimately, we think that like, you know, these robots, like their importance of them is in the economic value that they can create, then also in the physical world. And realistically, the kind of, you know, GDP, let's say, it's a term that you guys also coin, agentic GDP. So the GDP, the economic value that agents produce, that can only scale to, you know, the amounts that we see done by humans now, if they're actually physically existing in the physical world. Makes sense.
Correct.
Do you want to, you know, elucidate or talk a little bit about how virtuals are dealing with the movement from AI agents into the physical world?
Yeah. I mean, the way we sort of the North Star of virtuals is because we say we are in a society, so our North Star is basically the GDP of the society. And we also realize that if agents are only in the virtual world, your GDP can only be so big.
Yeah.
Right. But now, if you add the physical world, it's a lot more, right? So that's sort of the rationale we entered robotics. We first started because we just like the vertical. Like, we are a big believer that there will be a big shift in terms of everything from bits to atom. And so we first started just by investing in a lot of robotics companies out of our treasury, and then slowly, like, we realized that it makes sense to just so crypto plays a beautiful part here in terms of incentive to collect data, because data scarcity is the biggest bottleneck today in the robotics industry. Because unlike the internet that you can scrape everything, like robots, you need very proprietary, unique, egocentric or exocentric or whatever kind of data. And instead of burning cash to buy those data, you can play some kind of like mini Ponzi to collect data, and it's probably more capital efficient. So that's how we first started it, data collection. But because we both invest in a lot of good teams and talking to a lot of researchers, we realized that why don't we just buy hardware and just experiment ourselves? So that we bought 30 Unitree G1 robots in our KL office to build applications or build software on top of the hardware, because the software layer today is like non-existent basically. Because it's so new, right? And so that sort of closed the loop, because in order to build a software, you need data so that your software is good. And now we bought the hardware, and so that sort of closed the loop that we do pretty much everything under the sun, apart from actually the manufacturing part. That's what we're trying to do, right? That being said, within robotics, like I said, 3 to 5 years from now is the autonomous moment. So robots, fully autonomous. But even if robots can be teleoperated remotely, it's already unlocking a lot of value. So for example, if a Malaysian can operate a robot to take care of kids in Switzerland, that labor cost arbitrage is huge. At the same time, as you teleoperate the robots, you are collecting a lot of valuable data, which is very scarce, and you use the data to train the autonomous software. So that's sort of the playbook that we have in mind.
It's like a self-fulfilling loop almost.
Yeah, Correct. And so in a way, then we are basically doing everything under the sun. We try to collect the data. We try to build software that allows teleoperation today. We also try to build some VLAs that can autonomously operate certain easy actions. At the same time, we also try to activate our launch pad to encourage more founders to build specialized verticals of activities using our software and hardware. And that gets fed back to the data for us to build better models. That's how we think about it.
Maybe in a year when we potentially have a follow-up episode with virtuals, it can be with one of your
check
robots.
In. Actually, I was also wondering, Weekee, because you said you invest into a lot of like robotics companies. Were there like pure robotics or robotics X crypto companies? And if it's the latter, like what like intersections is the most like, let's say, interesting, appealing to you? And where do you say should actually like other entrepreneurs and founders focus between robotics and crypto?
Yeah, so we invest mainly in the crypto X robotics companies, just because that's sort of our vertical. But we screen a lot of Web2 robotics companies too. The only reason why crypto makes sense for robotics companies is on the data front, basically. It's literally on the data front. That's why we kind of also build ourselves, because we realize we have the distribution. Yeah, that's
data. And where should entrepreneurs build and focus, in your opinion, at this intersection? Like what type of agents would you love to see like launching on Virtual's protocol?
Yes. So the two parts, right? So there's the research front, which is there are teams that build sort of models and efficient models, whatever. Then there's teams that build data collection. Within data collection, it's also an unknown. What kind of data is the best? No one knows. Literally no one knows. So it's an interesting play field. Then we also encourage go-to-market founders, which is hotel cleaner robotics as a vertical. Then you have, let's say, security guards as a vertical. And then you have waitresses and waitresses. For example, like these are the verticals. And
how would you train these security guards?
We will first start with just teleoperation. Yeah. So it's actually quite economically logical, because you have one, so like a household of, let's say like an area of like 10 houses can just have two 1.9 meter height robots from Weekee that are made of metal body, and it's just controlled by one guy in Malaysia, right? So in Switzerland. So, or in fact, that one guy can control 10 robots at the same time in different areas, because they're not gonna have like robbers happening at the same time, right? So and if they see some bad guys coming, they'll just control it and use pepper spray and like or try to just fight them off, right? So yeah.
I mean, I think before Max, you can wrap it up. Like the last question I have for you, Weekee, just looking forward, like what are some expectations and predictions that you want to share, both for virtual protocols, but also like, let's say the general like AI agent space within crypto for this and the coming years? Like, what are you looking forward to?
Man,
I told you he was the bad cop.
Yeah, deep down, I mean, deep down, I do think that agentic commerce will happen on chain. Like we'll have massive adoption on chain. But whether the token price will pump or not is a separate point, because if you're not a public good, there's no reason for anyone to use you, because you're trying to charge me, I'll just fork your code and then like do somewhere else, right? So that is sort of the conundrum that I've gotten myself into, which is the tech is good, but it doesn't mean that it makes the asset price good. So that's sort of my prediction on the agentic commerce front. For virtuals, for us, it's like, that's why the way we kind of monetize is that we have to prove that we are worthy in terms of the tech contribution to the industry, but then inspire more founders to then think about tokenizing their business or their agents on our launchpad.
Makes sense. I just have a question, like also like I assume this will come up at one point, but who would be liable in the event of an agent like grossly misbehaving? And the reason I bring this up is because I'm sure you saw it as well. Maltbook, which is for our viewers who may not be aware of this, but it was all over social media, and Maltbook, for lack of better words, was kind of a social media, a Facebook for AI agents, and them interacting and them being able to chat with one another. And there were some, concerns about some of the threads that were put out on that website. And I just wonder, going forward, how do you treat liability when it comes to an agent?
Yeah, I mean, I would think the regulators would just go all the way back to who deployed the agent, which is the human behind.
I would get that, but on the flip side, it feels like a similar discussion point to, what we had for DeFi projects in the past. If someone built a code and there are actors that are exploiting, let's say, the protocol, the person who architected the protocol tends to be the one that gets in trouble from a regulatory point of view, when I don't necessarily agree with that. So
Yeah.
curious.
I think that's a risk that people like us are operating on, which is I mean, that's the reality. Like I
don't want to
that
be, European about this and worry about regulation before there's even a market, but just thought.
So again, Weekee, you see, actually Max is the bad cop, so he likes to call me.
No, I don't think too much about it, to be honest. I think the way I design things generally is just purely based on incentive, which is you just want a direct incentive such that the behavior is right, because that's the truest form of human, rather than like the archaic like law or regulation. Whether the legal system will penalize me for designing certain system is not really what I think about, because I do think that intention counts. Like that's how I operate, basically.
Maybe just because you brought out Max, something very interesting, and I wanted to also ask something that just popped up in my mind before we wrap it up for today. Hey, Weekee, did you look into Conway? Do you have an opinion on it? And maybe also for our audience, because again, this is very edge, this is very new. I think a lot of people might not be familiar with. So Conway is a new AI tool, and they argue to be the Web 4. So we call crypto Web 3, as you know. So they say they're the next evolution. And they say, as we say, Web 1 is read only, Web 2 was read and write, Web 3 was read, write, and own, because blockchain has ownership. And now Web 4, how the founder, Sigil is his name, of Conway described it, it's read, write, own, and transact, but in the context of AI agents. And he also argues that there's like different generations of AI models or AI tools. The first one being ChatGPT, which just would give you an answer but not act on it. Second generation being like Claude by Anthropic, which would actually like also create, let's say, if you want to create a website for you, but not pay, let's say, for the server whatsoever. And now the third generation is Conway, which are agents that also actually aim to survive by, after funding them, try to also generate some revenue for themselves to pay for the compute and so pay for the task, like being fully autonomous. Did you look into this, Weekee? What's your opinion on it?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting experiment. Like, I think it makes sense to just put it out there. I saw Vitalik like wasn't really happy about it, but I don't really get the argument, to be honest. Like, because if he doesn't do it, more people will just do it. Like, it's I mean, you can't advocate for a world of liberty, but at the same time trying to constrain things. I think, again, then the question becomes, what's the incentive for people to do things, right? I think you just have to think from an incentive point of view. Yeah.
I'm also interested to see how this develops.
Yeah.
Well, Weekee, wish we could have you for much longer than we did have you. It's been a pleasure having you on. Want to say thank you to you personally, but also to the Virtuals team for what they're building. It's really cutting edge stuff. If you haven't heard of it, please go check them out. A lot of exciting things you can do. You can make your life easier as well by hopefully getting some agents to also trade for you, because for some of our audience, crypto might be a little bit difficult to use, and these agents can simplify operational things in the crypto world for you. So I invite everyone to check it out. Again, a couple key takeaways would be that AI agents need crypto, and crypto also needs AI agents. It helps smoothen execution, and this is really about the underlying infrastructure that Weekee and his team are building. So any last words from your side?
No, I think, I think just keep building. I mean, the market is tough, but I feel like we've been through a tougher ones. So,
and bear markets are here to build. So
yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
Well, thanks a lot. It's been a pleasure. For our viewers, hope you enjoyed. Make sure to follow, watch us on YouTube, subscribe, like, comment, add questions if you guys have any, and be sure to also follow us on Spotify. Thanks a lot, and hope to see you next time very soon. Take care.
Peace out. Bye, guys.